Hey, what's going on, guys? So today I'm going to be working on reorganizing the garage a bit. Step one is going to be in this corner here. I've had these plans drawn up for a while now to put a pantry in this corner. As you can see, I've got a freezer here with all of our frozen goods, of course. And then in this wall, I'm going to be putting in shelving. And so I was able to get this pressed shelving boards for free that I'm just going to be cutting down to fit in between this cutout here and that wall. Step one is I got to go ahead and get everything out of that corner to make room to do that. And then we're going to go ahead and start marking up the wall and measuring out each of the pieces, cutting down the MDF that I have, the shelves that I have. Planning to do 15-inch shelves. So I went ahead and already drew up some plans. I've had them actually for over a year, just haven't gotten around to doing it. But I was able to get some free board, basically some MDF from some other shelving that a company was using, was able to get them for free. I'm gonna go ahead and knock this project out now that I have those boards. But first I need to get everything out of this corner, and then I will be marking up the wall. I'm gonna be cutting everything up. I've got some MDF strips that I'm gonna be using for the backer and the sides of each of these. I'm just gonna be using generic wood screws for all of this project as well, going into each of the studs. But let's go ahead and get everything out of the corner, and then we'll get started in building those shelves. All right, so this back corner is empty. As you can see, there's the ceiling here, but I have this ducting that runs for the interior of the house that comes right out here in the garage. This gives me the cutout that I'm gonna be installing the shelves inside, so it actually worked really perfect for me. I'm gonna be able to put bracing on each side, the back, and then this wall over here, of course. So this cutout here is actually 12 inches deep, works perfect. I've got some shelves that are 1/4 inch under the 12. So I've got all this MDF left over from when my house was built that they just happened to leave in my garage. And I've repurposed it for some other closets and stuff when I finished out my basement. I built a closet in there, worked perfect for having that available. But what I've done is I've cut these down to the size that's gonna go for each side and then the back. And so I'm just gonna build basically a stand for that shelf to slide into. I'm gonna cut them down for the width of that space. Working with this MDF style stuff is super simple. So if you need to do any sort of storage solutions in your garage, in your closets, wherever throughout your house, you can really frame out however you would like to using this kind of stuff. And again, using these pieces just to be those steps that it's gonna sit on. Bigger, wider versions of this, of course, for the shelves themselves. And then all you do is paint over it. You'd want to use a primer-based paint because this is going to soak up a lot of it. And then you can paint them whatever color you want. Ours are white throughout the house, and over time they do get kind of marred up and scuffed with black or whatever that we're sliding in and out of them. But you can totally repaint those later on as well. But they hold up to the job that they're intended to do. But now that I've got this space emptied out, I'm just gonna be cutting down these sets as well as a shelf to match this diameter as well. And then using a level, because I don't actually have a laser level, which would be really convenient for a job like this, but just using a level, I'm gonna transcribe a line that I'm gonna follow for these shelves, and I'm gonna put the total number of shelves in there. I think I'm at 5 that I'm planning to do. So this is just the first section of shelf that I've cut out to match this size. I need to cut out the remaining sets of shelves. Again, I'm cutting out just the sides and the back. Then I'm gonna cut the shelving to match. And for the front, I'm hoping the shelf is gonna be stable enough. This is only 3/4 inch thick for the board that I have down here. So I'm hoping it's not gonna get any excessive bowing in the front. If it does, post-install, I'm going to take some of the MDF I have and I'm gonna do basically a glue up with it. And I'm gonna put 2 pieces together and I'm gonna create a runner to go across the front, but we'll cross that when we get to it. All right, so for mine, I have this little pipe that I'm building around here. So I gotta leave enough room for that. And then I'm just making sure that I've got level. And you could totally just do this with the level as well for drawing your lines. But I wanted to make sure that this is gonna fit exactly as close as I could get it within reason. So for all the rest, I'll just be using the level to transcribe those lines going around. But there's my starting point. So I'm just gonna take this line that I transcribed right here, take that around all the way for the 3 sides that I'm using, And then I'm going to measure out the distance that I want for each shelf. I have to account for how much space I have here. So my first shelf starting here, I've got 96 inches coming up from this. So I take that and I'm going to divide that into how many shelves I could get. So I want at least 15-inch gapped shelves. And so that top shelf's going to end up having extra room. But otherwise, for your space, if you're doing a project like this, you need to account for the actual thickness of the shelf as well. So each of my shelves are 3/4 inch. And so I'm going to be doing 15 in between it, but then I've got 3/4 inch for the shelf itself. And then I want 15 in between. So if you're measuring for something specific to fit inside a space when you're putting up multiple shelves, you got to make sure you account for that actual diameter thickness of that board that you're using. Whether it's 2x4s, whether it's any other type of shelving, you got to make sure you account for that thickness. Otherwise, you're not going to end up with the total space that you needed. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and trace all these around, and then we'll be able to put all the shelves in place. So I've got that line going around the outside there. From that line, I'm going to measure up my 15 inches plus my 3/4 inch for the thickness of that first shelf. And you want to do that in a corner where you are going to be starting your level point. That way you start the board on this side and then you find level going across. Versus if you were to mark the middle and you then end up having to do level from one side to the other, pretty easily to get off that line. So if you just start on this line and bring the other side to level, it goes a lot quicker. So I'm using this pre-cut piece that I already have for the middle here to level versus just my level because it doesn't reach the whole space. I've got 40 and 6/8 inch in between each of these. I don't have a level that fits that. My 4 foot, of course, would be too big, and so this one works for the space. But to be able to draw that line, it's easiest to use the board that runs the whole space. And then I can use the level for the sides because it covers the whole distance and I have enough room to work with it rather than having to hold the board up to it. And of course, using this board to draw the line only works perfectly if the board itself is straight. So don't use a board that is not straight. So make sure you check that first. As you can see, this level has been through it, concrete work and whatever else, and but you know, it's held up really well. It's very durable. No reason to replace it, just to make it look pretty. All right, guys, so I got my lines all the way to the top. When you are connecting the corner lines, you want to make sure that those are the same height. So it's pretty easy to have that line be a 1/16 of an inch up or down or worse. So you just want to make sure that that line in the corner matches up your starting point from both ways going across, coming out, that you make sure that those line up. Otherwise, when you put these pieces up and you put the shelving on top, they're not going to be flush, right? It's not the end of the world if that happens, but you want them to be as close as possible. That way you have a perfectly finished flush back there. Now it's time to cut all of the boards. Again, I only have the first set so that I could lay it out and make sure everything fit correctly. But now I'm gonna go and cut the end strips for each. So I have 5 more shelves to build out for. I'm gonna need 5 of the longer pieces here. That's 40 and 6/8 inch that I'm gonna be cutting. And then I have these ends, which 5 shelves, I'm gonna need 10 of the ends. For me, I'm not gonna do the full 12 inch, which is the depth of the shelving that I'm using. I'm actually going to take it in about 1/4 inch, which is what I did here, 11 3/4. That way I have a bit of a gap where the shelf starts. That way I just don't want it completely flush out. You could, it adds nothing to the shelf though to do that. So I'm taking mine in just a little bit, strictly for the look of it. But this is also a garage. All right, so here's the edging that I'm trimming down. I'm actually going for 11.5, not 11 3/4. I misspoke. This is my makeshift miter station right now. It's just on one of those rolling tool carts. And otherwise, yeah, just gonna cut down all the strips that I need. Just another call out here. You also wanna make sure you're cutting on the outside of the piece that you're wanting to keep, on the outside of that line. If you cut in the middle or on the inside, the diameter of this blade is going to take a little bit of that off too. So if you're trying to make your measurements perfect, you want to cut on the outside of that project line. Something to consider if you're cutting down pieces, I totally could have made the end pieces out of the leftover here. As you can see, I can only fit 4 out of one of those bigger, longer strips that I had. And I could have totally made this into 2 of these at least. So something to consider, map out the pieces you're gonna be cutting down from any project. I should have done that, but that's okay. I'll repurpose them on the front if I end up needing to do that. I'll just overlap them with that glue up that I'm doing. So I've got all my pieces cut down. Now it's just time to put them in place. I've got all my lines in place as well. For me to find studs is also super simple, as my walls are not finished, so I can see exactly where those are, where the drywall was put in place. For you, you might still have to find your studs if that's something that you're up against. A generic stud finder, and you can draw that line the whole width down. Typically, you're going to have them in your corners. Those are easy to find. And then I'm just using these simple Spax construction screws. I do prefer the style screw that has a star bit, something like that, instead of a Phillips. I don't have to deal with any of the stripping or anything like that. So now it's just time to go ahead and put these up. I am working in a darker and cramped corner, so kind of hard to see. It gets a little more light as we get up here, but starting at the bottom and working my way up. So mistakes are going to happen. Something right in between sections there, I realized that I made these 3/4 of an inch too thick. This board here is 3/4 of an inch, or roughly thereabouts, and I did not account for the fact that I'm just butting this board up to it, and so I didn't account for that on the depth that I needed here. So consider that as well. But I've cut all the boards and now I'm back to it. So another little snag that I've already figured out a way to fix, but I just realized that my shelves won't come out to where there's actually a stud and they'll be floating here. Rather than doing any type of anchors or anything like that, I am going to use the same pieces of MDF. Take this bracing all the way out to here. My shelves aren't that wide. Maybe yours are deep. My shelves aren't that deep, so maybe for you that would work. For me, my shelves would be ending at 1 foot, and I'd have this much left over, which is perfectly okay. And then you have a very stable brace point. So for now, I'm just going to continue putting these up. So I am going to go ahead and get a piece that actually reaches out to this stud here. It'll be longer than my shelf. I can paint it, it'll look fine, but I just want to make sure that I'm going to have a very secure hold for each one of those shelves. So I'm going to go do that now. So I have all of the perimeter board put up that I'm going to put the shelves on. Another thing that I have to account for when I am cutting is the width in the back of this area versus the width of this front of this area, okay? So not all walls are square, so make sure you account for things like that. Yeah, I have about 1/8 of an inch to 2/8 of an inch difference as I progress up here from the front to the back. So you need to make sure that you account for anything like that. Don't just trust that all your walls are perfect, because it's not necessarily going to work out. So otherwise, it's pretty marginal. You could certainly fill in some of that spacing with caulking and paint and all that kind of stuff. So just make sure it's not too far off and you don't have to do something else to account for it. So now we're gonna go cut those shelves and get them in place. So I'm back at the miter station. This is that shelving that I was able to get for free. This is used inside a company, so it's not MDF. It's another type of particle wood, laminate style. It's got all the facings with laminate and such, but it's gonna work perfect for what I need. But for this stage, you could totally just finish this out with MDF, of course, and that's what I typically would use, but not gonna say no to free shelving. And I am checking the fit of every single shelf, just making sure that any of those weird spots in the wall aren't gonna affect me. So making sure I cut them to fit every single spot, because you know the contractors that put in the walls, they could totally bow here and there. So just cutting them to fit. One thing I have noticed is the actual back of the wall has a hump to it. Meaning when I put these shelves along the back, they are actually rocking. So unless I was gonna cut to match that, I'm just gonna fill that in with caulking. Some free shelving, some MDF strips. Actually didn't cost me anything besides the hardware, which I also had that as well. A little bit of elbow grease. All that's left now is to secure these. I'm gonna end up pre-drilling some holes here since this board is a little bit different, capped a little different. I don't wanna have it splinter out on me or anything like that. I'm gonna pre-drill some holes and put some screws right down into the MDF, and that will hold them in place. It's not gonna take a bunch, but maybe one in each corner, maybe even just one in the back corner would be perfectly fine as well. Just to keep them from being able to slide out, of course. Any of the holes from the screws you could fill with some caulking and paint over it if you want it to look that neat, and everything's good to go. And then I'm thinking I might put a 2x4 ladder over on this wall, just so the family is able to reach things up on those higher spots there without grabbing a ladder or anything like that. But pretty simple. Now I've got a whole bunch more storage that'll help with some of the stuff that we have inside the house. Another thing, I'm not gonna have to put those strips that I was curious if I might have to. The boards are perfectly stable without doing that. So pleased that I won't have to do that as well. Guys, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. I've got a lot more content planned. Been aiming to do a video each week with typically wood projects, but I really need to get my garage cleaned up. So I'll have a video coming from that from start to finish as well. But ultimately, got a lot of things planned. I need to get a miter station. As you can see, using that cart, not the best, but using what I got until I can get to where I need to, as well as doing a lot of little projects in between. If you guys have any project suggestions, put those in the comments as well, and I would love to take a shot at building them. Please check out my other videos, and again, I'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.